back, everybody, to part 6 of our energetic aspects of narcissist empath trauma. Today, we want to cover the next step. In step 5, we've discussed how to get past this trauma by leaving the narcissistic relationship, work relationship, and how to stand your ground. Today we want to cover how to actually move a step forward and claim back what was taken away from you, claiming back your sanity so that you can finally heal your trauma. These workshops are here for you to share, for you to contribute, to ask questions at any time. Let me see. As always, the objective of this workshop is to share and to ask, but also to increase the awareness. So there's an educational part in it, and to, all that with the objective to encourage you and become a more active participant, and by learning healing strategies, even if those strategies have nothing to do with you or only similar but not the same as your circumstances. We always learn something by listening to other people's strategies. We want to talk a little bit about these stages of healing, and I want to upfront let you know that most of the questions that I've received all kind of sound the same, and the main question that I received in many different versions is there actually a way to heal all this? Is there a way to move past this? Is there a way to heal that pain from having perhaps lost in court, or having been the victim of this injustice that unfortunately happens all too often in court? This is an international problem. Some societies are even worse. When there is a certain gender specific, so say if the narc is the male and the victim is the female, there's many different factors involved in this, and the court systems in our countries are not actually designed or prepared to deal with energetic projection, emotional projection of any kind. So this is the situation that we have. So if you want to sue or move into litigation against a narcissistic person, you're going to have to understand that you are up against a few things that can be worked with, but you've got to become really aware of this and have a good strategy. Before we get started, as per request of one of the participants, I do want to send out my prayers and my thoughts and my heart feelings to all of you, to all of us who have to go through these kind of situations. Needing to go to court with a narcissist is probably amongst the most I don't even know a word that could describe this, but really disgruntling, encouraging thing that you can do in your life. You will feel very scared, and it is part of this entire grooming and conditioning process that has been going on for years or decades in some of your cases, that literally sets you up for losing everything, for losing your kids perhaps even. So when we talk about these things in this sort of matter-of-factish manner, I do want to point out that we are not disregarding the damage here, the emotional, the mental, physical, and energetic damage to our soul, to our being. I have been part in such court cases twice in my life. And the first time I lost everything, the second time I won everything, and the third time I didn't go to court and decided that I'm okay with losing everything. So I have quite a wide variety of experiences here, depending on what your situation is. So my heartfelt thoughts and prayers for you if you are in a situation like this. There's somebody here who's currently being coached by me. This is Amanda, to prepare for going to court, or perhaps going to court, or litigating, and working all these things out. So Amanda, you are free to talk whenever. But I do need to point out that I am neither intending to be a legal counselor here, nor replace any legal advice or an attorney, anything of that sort. So anything that I share here is for educational purposes and, of course, for self-healing purposes, based on my own and your guys' experiences. So there are not many slides here for that reason. If you have to go to court and you would like to have a consultation with me, an energy coaching session that can help you, to prepare yourselves energetically for the court date and so forth, then please email me. All right. So yeah, what have you learned so far? Could also say, what have you learned so far in regards to fighting against a narcissist in your life? Whether or not it makes sense to go to court is a question that I would like to keep open and answer throughout the workshop here. But what is your guys' stance right now? Where are you standing with this? What are your experiences? Maybe have you gone to court with a narcissist? Are you currently in one? Are you considering one? Let us know here what this audience, where you guys are all coming from. Who would like to share?
I'll share if nobody else has anything to say yet. I have been to court several times, and I am currently, the way my situation is, I'm pretty much constantly in ongoing litigation. In my case, he continues to bring forth cases against me. I've been in court several times. I've lost some, I've won some. At this point, our court system is sick of us. So what they've done is the judge has appointed a liaison type of situation. So now whenever a topic or complaint comes up, we are kicked over to this, what is called a court-appointed coordinator. And
so Amanda, you just for the understanding here for everybody, you have 4 children with your ex-narc, and there are, except for one now who just turned 18, but they're all minors. So there's custody and child support and co-parenting issues that are going on. What have you learned so far? I mean, if you would have to put it into a nutshell.
I have learned that this is scary every single time still, even though I have to participate in one of these court-appointed meetings monthly. It still shakes me up. I'm still scared. I feel better now. You've been coaching me. I can see, there comes a point where I just have to say, okay, my old behaviors, the way I handled things in the past, are not going to work here. And what I've learned most about is that our court system has nothing to do with truth.
Mhm.
That was a hard thing for me to face. It's not about truth. It's not about justice. That's not how our court system handles these types of things. Um, and I have learned the bottom line is that whatever the complaint is, whatever I'm being brought to court, it's not about that thing. It's
Mhm.
about winning for him.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yes.
So, in essence, it's not about the children either.
It's not about the kids. It's not about, whatever, parenting inadequacy he's trying to bring forth. It's not about um, co-parenting. It's about winning, winning, winning.
And you've also learned that, or you are about to learn, or you are learning right now that uh, because this is obsessive with narcissists, the need to win, the need to maintain a certain sense of self, which depends on the audience, all right, that this will be done to their own default. So this is one of the big sort of key strategies when you are dealing with a narcissist in some kind of legal situation, is that this is one of the things that you can absolutely expect and predict. Narcissists in their obsessive compulsive nature are very, very predictable. And so it is actually something that can be used against them,
Mm-hmm. You
their
are
own
teaching me that
obsession.
very well. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. If you can get past these fears, past these traumatic imprints, just to stay as neutral as possible, that we're left behind on you, how your soul has been crushed several times. And of course, as a co-parent, we talked about this last time, it's it's really sad, to realize that it's not about the kids, that the father is actually not interested in the kids, that it's really just about winning or just about him.
Mm-hmm.
you know yeah. What are some of the things that you've learned about narcissists in court, since you're the expert here?
Um, well, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I have a lot of experience.
Like
Um,
their demeanor or their MO.
well, um, they, he can't seem to, once he gets triggered, if he does get triggered, um, um, he's off. So that's one thing I can use to my advantage. Like you've kind of taught me that whole gray rock. Like if I can just be gray rock, mm-hmm, yes, nod, okay. That's my best stance in court. No matter what my insides are doing, if I can keep my outsides, pretty uh, cool, um, that helps. But one thing I want to tell anybody else in this situation, I feel that it's important. And one thing that you recommended to me that changed the game entirely was I have a right, especially having proof of previous violence, to say, I do not want to be in a room with this person. Or if I have to be, I want an advocate. So I didn't know that I had that right, but once you recommended that, I put that request in to our assigned coordinator, at which point she says, this is true. You can be phoned in for every single one of these. That now, the last 3 times I've been able to participate via just put on, kind of piped in from another location. And that helps me to keep
Mm-hmm.
my energy. I have less triggers not being in the same space. Um, I can keep my notebook open to all of the notes of the coaching we went through. I can just be more organized within myself. So just to let anybody else know, if that's something that you can do it.
That's very important to share. This is like becoming aware of your rights.
Mm-hmm.
and claiming those. All right, not feeling like a victim and going in there as a victim already, which will
Mhm.
then, of course, not only energetically, but also, just on a human interaction level, set the whole thing up against you. Okay,
Yeah.
so thank you, Amanda. That's a really good overview. Like what sort of these things are that we have to face when we actually go to court. We're going to go through them. There are a few things that are totally sort of textbook almost, and I'm sure that those of you who have been in court with a narcissist already have experienced the one or other. I'd love to hear from you if this is something that happened to you. When it comes to looking at sort of what it actually is that we want, and in order to reclaim our life, there are some things that we have to do first. And so before we get into all these things, actually how to act in court and so forth, I want to go back to the essence of all these past webinars, and that is, like, what is it really, that we need to do first, okay, before we can have this clarity that Amanda mentioned here, what you can do, what you can't do, what your rights are, what this organized, as you called it, Amanda, right? What that even means, right? To have something like a strategy. And um, the essence of that is, and this goes back here to all 5 workshops that we've already done, is of course that regardless of how traumatizing and how much loss you've experienced on whatever level, this loss can, by the way, is not always like in Amanda's case with children involved. So this can be it can also be a divorce without children, where it's just about marital assets. It can be with a boss, okay, where you were either bullied out, or where you decided that you had to quit because it was wearing you down too much, where there may have been some kind of sexual abuse or sexual harassment or violence involved. Okay, so there's many different reasons why we may find that we need to go to court. And just like with all these other gray areas where uh, the victim is so intimidated by the perpetrator, by the abuser, that she or he feels that there is no way to win, or that there is no way to actually change that. Um, I must say that I disagree a little bit with Amanda in one thing. It is about truth in courts, but it is about the factual truth only. And so proving that there has been energetic projection or etheric abuse or emotional abuse, that is something courts are not prepared for.
Yeah,
Anything that is
and
subjective.
I meant, I think that's what I meant, is that, you can go back, you can't go back and say, here's what's really happening, energetically or
Mhm.
abusive wise. That doesn't matter anymore, but when you're in that space, that's all that matters, because that's all you're
Yeah,
feeling in that
exactly.
in that moment. That is your truth in that moment. But to the judge, that means nothing.
No, I mean, some judges are empaths themselves. It isn't that they can't feel it. It isn't that they can't see it, but they have to stick to the rules too. They have to stick to, how the court system is, or the legal system is designed, and that is in our first of all countries fact-based. Okay. And this is also, one of the pillars here for you, no matter what the court case is that you are, experiencing or preparing or intending on doing is the only power really that you have in court is through proof, through facts. And for the victim of narcissistic abuse, that is actually not that difficult to produce proof. You just have to prepare a lot for that. And because the preparation often involves facing the trauma and facing some of these situations that were, sort of beyond overwhelming, the victims often don't even do it because they don't want to face that again. They don't want to re-traumatize themselves. And this is why it feels so unjust, because our energetic system, our autonomous nervous system, everything is screaming, no, no way in hell I'm going to go through this again. I mean, even talking to police, after domestic violence or rape, if anyone has ever been in a situation like that, it is extremely challenging. All right. So just understand here that when we talk about these things, we're very much aware that uh, the subjective experience of just facing all of that in and of itself is the hardest part, but also the part here that it forces you to enter this personal journey of self-discovery and self-healing, and therefore an important part of your recovery process. When we feel victimized by somebody and they got away with stuff, that they shouldn't have gotten away with, then our silence to a degree becomes complicit. Not that it is our fault, but by not speaking up, by not going to court, by not claiming what was taken away from us, we can also promote and enable this. Okay. Now, if there are children involved, then this has to be very carefully considered. So, like I've mentioned before, I've been in this situation 3 times in court with a narc. First time for sexual abuse and sexual harassment at a workplace. Second time with the husband and father of my older 2 children. And the third time, the second husband that I decided not to go to court with because of the now 4 children involved. Okay, so I want to let you know that there is no one answer, okay, to each of your situations or your cases, all right? But when you decide not to go to court, then make sure or be aware that this can always leave a scar in you where you feel like regrets or you should have done something. And there are ways, with children, uh, as time goes by, the situation keeps changing and it gets harder and harder, obviously, because the kids get older. And, to go back to court and modify child support after 10 years or so that's not worth it, because that will be really difficult to prove, because the situation for the kids has already changed so much that the cost may outweigh the results. But there are some situations where if not too much time um, has gone by, where it does make sense to go back or to go, even if there's already 1, 2, 3 years gone by. In fact, it's actually very common that a victim doesn't even feel the needed strength to even consider that until this first phase of recovery has already passed. So until we sort of have regained a sense of self again, where this clarity that Amanda was mentioning starts kicking in, you know, and where we begin to see the larger picture. Okay, so seeing the larger picture is really is a really important part of your consideration, or needs to be a big part of the consideration. You know, like for instance, if you work for someone, for a boss who is a narcissist and who clearly has an MO of sexual harassment, not speaking up can also bring, you know, people that come after you into that place, you know, where, you know, they don't dare to speak up because nobody else has ever spoken up before them. Things like that. It's a chain reaction. You know, narcissism is like a virus. It keeps affecting and infecting everybody who comes in contact with narcissism, and you know, sort of spreads and replicates that way. When it comes to children, you know, there are, you know, I have a very clear stance there. In regards to children with a narcissist, you have to literally keep them away from the narcissistic parent. Okay, otherwise your children have a, you know, a predisposition that is, you know, so, um, you know, that forces them into either narcissism or, you know, codependency themselves. There is very little, you know, sort of middle ground there, unless, and that would be my overall recommendation to anyone who is in, has problems with a narcissistic co-parent, to get the kids in therapy, to get the kids in counseling, and to, you know, allow them to do their healing outside of the family, outside of, you know, their relationship with you and the other parent, because you know, the infection is already there. Okay, this may sound a little harsh, but the kids, even if on the outside it all looks all right, they never get away with without damage there. Okay, um, I hate to say it this way. So you
No,
have
but this
to
is true, you
make
know,
sure.
Jonah. I'm
Excuse me.
sorry.
What did you say?
This is Janet. Just quickly, you apologize for it, but it's so true. I saw this sort of thing start to creep in with my daughter, my older daughter, and I just had to keep saying no. But it is such a difficult thing to battle, and it is important to, you know, the steps I was taking was to just get a normal adult sitting with me so that she could experience two adults communicating in a healthy manner and relating,
Mm.
because you know her experience was not all but was a good bit with two adults not communicating properly. And but the when you speak about this infection, it happens,
Mhm.
and then you can see it come in, and it's worth fighting for, even though, you know, maybe there's better methods than what I used. It it's there. It is absolutely
It's
there.
really not, yeah, it's really not, you know, just up to us. I mean, this is, this requires really more than just us. I mean, we need to get, obviously, we need to get involved in the lives of our kids and help them. But, you know, every, you know, parent who's empathetic will do this anyway. But, um, you know, there's limitations as to what we can do due to the setup, due to the grooming, you know, that has taken place since infancy. And that's why in those cases, Janet, whatever the, you know, in your case, what you could have done is minimal. You know, this really requires help. It requires us to see the larger picture and to say, okay, I need to get professional help in here. I need to get the kids to have someone, you know, like a third person, you know, because the triangulation and the wedging and the pitting against and all that has been going on. The older the child gets, the more that is already implanted in the child. So they will not trust either of their parents. All right. So and that's the something, that we just have to see, where we have to, while we are still there, and use our empathy and use our love for our children to make them feel safe so that they can trust us. Okay. But there are limitations, and the actual working through this then comes much later, to be honest with you. I mean, if I look at my clients, Janet, and I'll be honest to all of you, it's I'd say amongst or within the empath community, there's I would say 80-90% of us have had either narcissistic parents, have narcissistic trauma through parents or partners. 80-90% of us. Okay, so that part of healing and recovery extends, into our adult life then later, when we realize that some of these behavior patterns are really toxic. It's most people begin to realize this when they see how they keep attracting the same type of person back into their lives, or the same kind of job, or just the same kinds of patterns, and then they seek help as an adult. So it is really part of this global shadow, all right? And we have to begin to see that this isn't just our ex-partner, or our ex-boss. This is an infectious disease here that is tormenting our societies. Okay, but this has been going on forever. So just because we are now starting to be more aware of it, starting to come out of our, caves and start talking about it, this is the first step here. You've got to really understand that what we are doing here, okay, is already groundbreaking, okay, because the 50 people, okay, that come here, that listen to this, all right, they will then replicate that into their environments, and this is how this has to go. All right, we have to start breaking the wheel, all right, by educating ourselves, by educating others sometimes, seeing this larger picture, and begin to speak about this openly. Every victim that comes forward and speaks openly, this is just like with the Me Too movement, or people speaking up against bullying, all right? It strengthens the 100 other people, okay? So this is the only way how we can really heal this is, in a larger sense, is to come out of our victim woodwork, and especially powerful, when we can then move into this thriver and inspire position, where we share this with others, who are then becoming inspirers for other victims again. Okay, so this wheel that I'm talking about is that wheel of injustice that we take on as a sort of a punishment from God, but it really isn't. It's just like bad habits, okay? And our society has allowed these bad habits, has kept them or swept them under the rug, and the legal system isn't really prepared to deal with this. It tries, but it cannot really make up, of course, for these soul parts that were taken away from us. All right, so that is our part then, to be proactive and to step into this active self-healing journey. All right, so the ultimate recovery, if you will, whether it is ourselves or our children, happens through this active step into moving on with a stronger sense of self, and really focusing on that. But it has to come with us reaching out, because we are still in that place where we are not really being told what we can do. This may take another generation until that changes. These parts that were taken away from us, we have to claim them back. and going to court, litigating in any way, or suing somebody, are just one aspect of that, or one way to open up or to explore an avenue. When it's about money, or when it's about custody, or assets. But the bottom line is that experiences like this, traumas like this, karmically force us into self-healing and rebuilding a new life. Literally seeing this as an intervention, where whatever it is that we've done before, for whatever reason. So these 80-90% of clients that I talked about here, empaths, they have been conditioned to act this way, which means, or to attract this into their life. So this reaches back several generations, guys. Okay, this isn't all your fault. None of this really is, but you are now part of it. And so in order to break the wheel, you have to make active steps. Okay, just like how any bigger movement here in our civilizations had to come with people standing up and actively claiming it, whether it's voting rights, whether it's equality, whether it's equal pay, whether it's healthcare, education, you name it. Okay, these things need to be claimed by us. We are the people. Okay, and protection and support as victims of narcissistic abuse, that's going to be a big issue in the future. You're going to see this. It's going to be handled differently in the future, simply due to the number of cases. But as of right now, the way the situation is, okay, which we have to acknowledge, we have to deal with how it is, okay. All we can do is, go into this active stance and then work with what we have. And I want to really send out a very, very strong message to all of you who are in this situation, or who were in this situation, even if it's too late for yourself. There are ways to outsmart. There are ways to beat a narc in court. And it's actually not as hard as you think. But first, you're going to have to make that decision. You're going to have to make the decision that you no longer want these kind of patterns in your life. Not for yourself and not for your children. By the way, this can also be, seen in the same manner with addiction, with substance abuse of any kind. There's got to come the point in your life where you say, I've had it. I'm not seeing myself as a victim anymore. Because your victimhood, and this sort of, and it's understandable from an energetic point of view, because your energy is so low at that moment that you are not able to actually see this. So for this decision, you may have to take my say so, or Amanda's sharing, or other people sharing. Yes, it is possible to walk out there as a thriver, not just as a survivor, as a thriver. Yes, it is possible to become happy again, to love again, to have healthy relationships, to have great jobs. It is possible, but you have to really decide that and align yourself to that. What comes right after the decision then is part of whatever system you are facing. Okay? So the stages of that, when, let's say, you've just decided to walk out of a relationship with a narcissist, kids involved or not, but let's just take, one of those cases where we have a lot of these binding factors, so that we can talk through several examples here. Let's say, you are divorcing a narcissist with children, okay? And there is the first stage that you'll go through is all this pre-divorce, like talking to lawyers and sending letters back and forth, sort of establishing what it even is. Okay, that what you even want, what the other want, and so forth, and what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and so forth. All right. Why is this important to see? Because for the narcissist, as Amanda so beautifully illustrated for us, it's all about winning. The court case does not begin in court for the narcissist. The court case begins right here. It has probably begun long time ago. The setting up the stage for the court date, which may be years from now, okay, starts in this first stage, this pre-divorce stage. And you've got to be very aware of that. Any kind of exchange through lawyers, will be in the same manner as, how he or she will act in court. There'll be false allegations, there'll be lies, there'll be threats, there'll be, constantly changing statements, changing the game, changing the rules. There'll be false witnesses, there'll be all kinds of things, all within this MO of narcissistic behavior. Let's just recap that a little bit. What is narcissistic behavior? What is the typical MO? Well, the typical MO is, anywhere, from entitled, pompous, malignant, you know, literally things that everybody else is subhuman, that he or she is the smartest. Lying is part of all this constant bashing, constant minimizing, and the things that you already know, is that they will use anybody and anything. There's nothing sacred against you. They will say one thing, but then their actions won't match up with that, and tries you to be scared, tries to make you scared, tries to make you lose it, tries to show how unfit you are, tries to entangle you in all kinds of things, sideline battles, all kinds of things. Narcissists are masters of this battlefield, guys. This is what they have been programmed and conditioned with since their childhood, okay? So there are some things that are also typical MO about narcissists that are part of their pathology, and that's the really hard part here to understand sometimes, but they do believe into their own lies. They truly believe them. So what you perceive as a lie, clearly a lie, is not a lie for the narcissist. Amanda, can I call you here in the witness?
Yeah, sure.
For that?
That is one thing that, for lack of better words, it's just a mind fuck, because you realize you aren't dealing with truth there because they believe their own lie.
And that's why you said, well, in court, it's not about truth. I understand how you got to that conclusion, but it's not that court doesn't care about truth. It's just that, court can only take, what they get, So them insisting on a different truth than yours obviously can only be, this can only be, untangled, by proving that this is a lie. Okay. But oftentimes we don't have the guts, we don't have the nerve, to do this, because this is, a really, really big part of the MO, is to entangle you in your own emotions and your own fears so much that you can't even think straight.
Yes.
You know it's a lie, but you can't think straight.
Well, and then you go into fear and being flustered, and then there's a trauma and having to defend your truth. And So yeah, that's where I started, in that place. Obviously, I've evolved since the first time I've had to go to court years ago. But yes, and you feel very small, and you feel very confused. And at that point, um, there came a point where it wasn't in my best interest to say anything, because anything that came out of my mouth, I would have looked flustered and uneducated, and I would have been my victim self, which would have not been in my favor at that point.
Yeah, so you just beautifully illustrated that. Part of the pre-divorce stage is to get you conditioned to that victim self. Okay, so that when it comes to the court where it all gets recorded, you show up as somebody who doesn't have it all together. Literally, that is part of the MO. You got to understand this. This happens, the manipulation of you happens way before the actual court date. It happens in this pre-divorce state through the paperwork, you know, pages and pages, hundreds of pages of stuff, sidelines, and here they say one thing and then they say that the contradict themselves, and it's like literally, like you said, it's a crazy making process that happens way before the actual court date. So anybody who's ever been in court with a narcissist, and you feel like you want to face all that, look at the paperwork before the actual court date, and you see that this is where the battle actually took place. You've got to prepare for that. Okay. The main sort of goal there in the pre-divorce stage is to constantly escalate. It's everything is contentious. Everything is. Okay, if you just assume that, if you just really go in there and recognize these MOs, it doesn't change the fact that it does that to you, but it helps you. If there's a feedback that happens within yourself, it helps you at least to recognize what it is that they're doing, and therefore, it allows you to process it faster. Okay, thank you, Amanda. And then stage two of we're still in the stages of a court fight here. Stage two is when there's kids involved, there's often like a temporary court order just to maintain, that the kids have enough food and that there's some kind of regulation. Here you gotta, so it's something like a temporary court order. Here you gotta be very careful. Oftentimes the courts, from a temporary court order to the actual court date, there can be quite a bit of time that is in between there, and they tend to like when temporary court orders sort of work out well. Okay, then they like going back to them and say, well, since this now worked well, why don't we just keep it that way? Okay, it's just a little, it's not obviously the way it is, but they have a tendency. So when you have a temporary court order, and it's seriously against you, okay, you need to immediately seek a modification. Immediately, because say the court decides that for the until the real court date happens, you have 50-50 custody, or whatever it is that they're deciding, and you disagree with that. You immediately have to do something about that, okay? Because the longer that drags out, okay, the more the narcissist will try to find mistakes with you. They will test the waters, they will try to establish control, and they will further try to wear you down with something that Amanda has shared here, with constant allegations, constant, bringing in experts, wanting to have child evaluation, psychological evaluations, calling child protective services, whatnot. Okay, all that is part of the MO, and this happens way before the court date. So with the temporary court order, you will exactly see what expects or what awaits you. The attacks and the allegations are already being installed in that phase. Now, when you finally go to court and you have a permanent court order, then of course there's an aspect here that, where you sort of first of all have to deal with the fact that now this is a court order. So whatever that is, and we'll talk about how to act in court and all that, but I wanted to just give you an overview what these stages are that you can expect. Then, whatever the court order is at that moment, okay, this is like what is carved in stone. And now, if you ever wanted to modify this, there is basically the same procedure over again. So then you go into this pre-phase again, where you need to go through some mediation again, where you have to go through all these stages again, okay? And this is how you've been, tactically worn down, all right? While, both parties or you probably feel a little bit of relief at first, okay? You got to be careful here. This can create a false sense of security for you, because if they've lost, they will not stop there, okay? They will slowly and surely trying to change things. They will try to set traps. They will try to, make you make mistakes. Okay, they will, just like in Amanda's case, continue to involve you in pointless fighting, pointless, over and over and over again. All right, and they will try to hoover you back in. They will try to sort of pit the kids against you. They already know, their lawyers probably already told them what they need to prove. They need to prove that you're either an unfit parent, or that you've told the kids that you are a bad parent, or, that you are, a drug addict or a criminal or something like that. It doesn't matter. So they'll try to hoover you back into you reacting. Okay, so you got to understand, this has nothing to do with love, and this has nothing to do with the kids. All they want is the supply from you, which is you reacting. And that's then often what leads then to stage 4, where they try to pull you back into a modification, where they try anything they can. Like in Amanda's case, the courts got tired of this, and they've basically employed a permanent parent coordinator who handles all these constant complaints and modification petitions. All right, so this is going to be an ongoing thing with children. With assets, it's different. I mean, it can take years with children. It can also take years with assets. So that requires a specific plan that you have in mind when it's about marital assets, maybe a company that you've built together, or your husband hiding assets, or your wife. So the significant narcissistic other trying to, hide the truth from the court. This can take years of preparation for you to become able to show the facts and to prove what you're entitled to. So, if the ex is has the means to provide it. So I just want you guys to understand that, it's not just a court date, okay? It's that whole process, okay, that can allow you, or that, wears you down, that works on you. And this is the important part here, why I mention this, that continues the narcissistic abuse. Okay, so for as long as you see yourself as a victim in that whole court proceeding, this will be, I mean, there's a whole new essays that are now being written about this continuation of narcissistic and emotional abuse through court. Okay, there's now precedence cases where the court had to step in and literally forbid the narcissist to litigate, because it was obvious that this was just basically harassment. So the courts can be used for harassment, but once they get that, which may take years before they get there, so it may be your job to prove that. Okay, so that's an avenue, just saying. Overall, the things that you have to learn here in order to not fall for any of these tactics, for any of these intimidation tactics and wearing down tactics. Something that Amanda already mentioned, gray rock. That's one of those narc memes. Okay, so gray rock is when you basically, and this has nothing to do with the spiritual journey that you are on here. This is almost like the opposite. You when you have to completely dissociate yourself from that energetic and emotional impact, or the physical impact that it has on you, and pretend. So you cannot be your true self in court. That's why I wanted to cover this in an extra workshop. This is not the place to show up as your highest potential spiritual self, guys. This really needs to be understood. If you want to get through court with a narcissist without being perpetually abused again and re-traumatized, you're going to have to learn how to use your energetic wisdom, your energetic knowledge to succeed in a system that is non-integrous. Non-integrist meaning that it's not based on the truth in your heart. It's based on a pretend truth. And pretend truth is something that narcissists, or fake truth, is something that narcissists are specialized on. Okay, so you cannot go in, even though you know what is true and what isn't, and try to fight with a narcissist about pretend truth. You gonna have to be smarter. Gray rock means that you observe but don't get engaged. You show no emotions, and no matter how much fear you have, no matter how your body is screaming out, you pretend you are not afraid. You pretend that this person is not even scratching you a bit. You don't even look them in the eyes. You give them zero supply. You are like a gray rock, like a granite rock. They're not getting anything out of you. Zero. That's what gray rock means. And this is part of overall discarding techniques with a narcissist, because we've covered this already. But the narcissist has very elaborate manipulation tactics, one of which is this evaluate putting you on a paddle stool and then dumping you. Okay, all of that is something that you have been conditioned with. So their supply, their narcissistic supply, comes from you reacting to it. Okay, so you've got to understand that the best way for you to remove your narcissistic supply is by no longer reacting, which means you have to learn how to, from an energetic point of view, manage your energy, even if it's just for pretend, to not give it to them. And why would you do that? Because, and this is now, leading to something that we could call a strategy, or outsmarting, how to outsmart a narcissist in court. Because if the narcissist gets insecure in his or her sense of self, and goes into shame, gets exposed, gets humiliated, loses it in public, that's your chance to win. Because they're highly incongruent, because they're malignant, but they will pretend otherwise. They will use their glamour, which is an energetic projection technique, to literally mesmerize his own lawyer, the judge, the court aides, anybody involved, even your lawyer. They use their energetic projection abilities on all the people that are involved in your court case. So the only way for you to win is to expose him or her, to literally make these people see his true nature. You never use the word narcissist or anything like that. We will get to the specifics here of that. You are calm, you are emotionless. You just prove the things that you bring onto the table. Sometimes you don't even have to use your words. You just present proof. You just present the facts. And you treat them as if they don't exist. You're basically mirroring their manipulation tactics back onto them, and that is your chance, guys. So the next phase then for you to claim yourself back is to determine what your needs are. What do you even need? What do you want? You know, if you are planning on going to court, what do you want? What do you need? Okay, is it that you need more money? Is it that you want your pet back, or you want your children? You know, needs and wants. What is it that you want? You have to have a very clear strategy here in your head, or not strategy, but a proactive stand. I want more child support. I want a severance pay for having to lose my job. I want half of the marital assets, or I want uh, spousal support, or I want more child support. You need to really look into what it is that you need in order to claim your life back, provided, of course, that the other has the means. So there's a saying in German, you know, you cannot really grab into the empty pockets of a naked man. I think that translates pretty well. I mean, if there's nothing there, okay, then you know, it's not really recommendable. Although I do have to say this can change, and therefore it's always better to have a court order in your pocket in case things change, especially if there's kids involved, because you're looking at a process here that takes, you know, till the kids are 18. So if they come to riches or whatever, they still have to be responsible for their child financially. Okay, I see too many single parents not even going to court because they know that the other partner doesn't have anything. I would not do that. I would always seek a court order. It's up to you if you enforce it or not. You know, you don't have to enforce it. You don't have to you know, force them to pay it to you. But you need to have that court order in your pocket. Okay. So what do you need in order to claim your sense of self, your life back? And then what are your fears and what are your concerns? You have to face them with yourself or coach or therapist or friend. I'm afraid that he's going to take the kids away from me. I'm afraid that he's going to humiliate me. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose everything. I'm afraid that ... You got to face those. And I can assure you that all your fears, your worst fears, are going to come true if you don't face them. Okay? Because he or she knows your fears. So you better gear up and face your own fears because they already know them. So that's something you need to write down, something you need to really work with and desensitize yourself a little bit from it, educate yourself. You know, what are things such as the child's best interest, you know, sort of the guidelines that the courts go by, and what are conditions under which, say, a co-parent, you know, the other parent can take the kids away from you. I can tell you there's very, very few you know, situations or conditions in which that can actually happen. Okay, because it is not in the child's interest to take them away from either partner, from either parent, And so, you know, you have to like do a reality check on your fears. Now, fears such as he or she is going to physically abuse me, they're going to freak out, they're going to try to kill me, they're going to try to, you know, threaten, they're going to threaten me, they're going to, you know, I'm afraid for my life, which I want to add here is very, very common. Okay. And this does happen. You need a support system before you can make a move, before you can make, you know, before you can start enacting your strategy. You need to have a clear plan of, you know, also, you know, based on the past. If there's already domestic violence that happened during your marriage, then it's very likely that this is going to continue. So sometimes, you know, you need to have restraint orders, protection orders, or already talk with a shelter or something. I mean, guys, I'm spelling this out for you because those are the steps that are needed to be done. And this sounds so out of this world, you know, dramatic, but we see this over and over and over again. Let me ask her here with this audience.
Jona?
Yes.
Well, I was just going to interrupt you essentially because I'm just saying, yes, this is true. I've gone a little bit step by step about where I needed to step in earlier and where I just kind of let it go, certain things go, and no. But it's screwy. It's really screwy.
Yeah.
Because it takes away from mom being mom with the children to mom being somebody who has to keep fighting with this other person. However, those earlier steps, stepping in with no emotion and just saying, hey, this isn't being taken care of, find somebody to help, just go straight on that narrow path and just keep going. Like you said, it doesn't sound, it sounds normal when you speak from my experience.
Okay.
So it's
And
getting out of the cloud.
thank you, Janet, for confirming this. I was just going to ask everybody here, from those people here, who of you has experienced either yourself or witnessed it, you know, within your family somewhere, you know, or neighbors or friends, these kind of drama situations when people get separated, when there's kids involved or not, you know, where there is domestic violence, where there is, I mean, serious stuff going on. Who of you, raise your hand, guys, who of you has experienced this firsthand, either yourself or you've seen it with your friends or, you know, other parts of your family? Yes, my hand is up too. I was raised that way. That was my childhood. Yeah, so it's more than 50%, 60, roughly 60% here of people here in this audience. Okay. So this is not just some, you know, movie or, you know, drama. This is actually, unfortunately, you know, 50-50 that it can go this way. So you have to prepare for these things, okay, before you make these steps, you know, litigating or going back to court or whatever. You have to have that like you call this, Janet, you called it a narrow path, but you have to have this like this foresight, okay, that yes, all your worst concerns are going to come true. So you're going to have something in place that keeps you sane, that keeps you strong, that keeps you supported, okay? And then you can develop a first strategy where, you know, you can say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a lawyer, you know, I want to seek a modification for child support, or I want to change the custody arrangement, or you know, even though it's already been a year, but I want to sue my ex-employer because there were some things that happened that forced me out of that job, and you know, that is sort of what you have in mind, okay? And then, you know, comes this whole sort of, what do I even need? What do I even need to do this? Okay. And this is where it sounds so simple when you talk about this, but when you are in this disgruntled place, it's very, very hard to think straight. Okay. It's so hard. And it's, you know, your faith in humanity, your faith in life itself is so shattered that, you know, we sometimes you really forget the obvious. Okay. The obvious, like the simple stuff. What do we need and how can we prepare, guys? First of all, obviously, when it's about money, you need records. You need IRS records, you need bank statements, you need all kinds of things that prove, you know, things such as income, such as expenses. Okay. And, you know, I want to give you guys a heads up that sometimes this strategic, this preparation phase, you know, where you begin to build your case, all right, it can take years until you finally actually make a strike. So I can only recommend those of you who are still in such a relationship and are afraid to leave, but you can kind of feel, you know, that this isn't going to end well, all right, to prepare before you leave. Copies of, you know, any kind of contracts, of mortgage, of bank statements. You have to have access to all of these things and make photocopies. Without this, it's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, for any lawyer to build a case and for any judge to give you what you deserve, because they don't have anything to work with. Okay, so you need to record anything. When it's about child support stuff, you know, where it's not about records, but where it's about things such as the state of the children, the way they feel after they come back home from the other parent, what they say about the other parent, how your interaction is at drop off and pick up, what other people say, what teachers say, who brings them to doctors, who brings them to their friends, and so forth. You need to record all of that. Do not feel stupid if you feel like you are an accountant of your and the kids' life. This is the only way to win in court, guys, because out with those records, with those copies, with those things, you can produce charts, you can produce statistics, you can produce paperwork, a paper trail, all right, that the court can use. Without a paper trail, the court cannot do shit, even if they want to. And if you live in a state or in a country where you have a one person consent to record conversations, you can record every conversation that you were involved in. Some states, some countries allow you to do this, you know, regardless. You know, you don't. You know, you can do this regardless, and it can be admitted to court. Some states and countries only allow you if you have the consent for both. So you got to look that up. But I would record it anyway, because it's something that you can give to your lawyer. You know, that your lawyer then, you know, realizes what you are up against. Okay, you really got to see yourself. I mean, whatever uh, uh, show you remember from your childhood, from your youth, you know, the Law and Order or whatever, how they build court cases. Yes, that's how you got to do it. You got to have the paperwork. And there's another thing with paperwork and charts and stuff like that, is that if you have that already and prepared, like Amanda, in your case, I have recommended you to get yourselves a binder with nice dividers, and to have all that in what are they called? Cheat protectors ready when the subject gets talked about. You just pull this out, you hand it over to the judge and say, here is the proof that blah, 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 blah. And you let the paper trail, you let, you know, what you've prepared here on paper speak for you. You don't even have to speak. Photos, videos, Obviously, if there are other, if there are police records and stuff like that involved, you need to photocopy them. If there are previous court orders, you need to copy them. You bring all this and show up like somebody who has it all together. Can you see what I'm talking about, guys? That in itself, the impression that you are leaving there in court with having your binder together, having all that, highlighted charts and everything, your calendar, your family calendar from like 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. You bring in every single piece of paper and receipt that you can find that proves whatever it is that you want to prove. Can you see what the judge sees? Whatever it is that he says, that you are like a crazy person, that you are a space cadet, that you are like in a cult, and that you are, that you're a drug addict, I've heard it all. Okay, whatever it is that he says, whatever the allegations are that he comes up with hearsay and flying monkeys and whatnot, you know what the judge sees? A person who has it together, a person who has a strategy, a person who has collected records, who has made his job easy. Do you think that these judges in family court who have to listen to the shit all day long, that they enjoy that? No. You know what they enjoy? Easy cases. And what is an easy case for a judge? That has a nice paper trail. Because that's what's going to be archived. That's what's going to be seen by the public in the end. They like court cases that make them look just. Okay? So you need to provide them with reasons, with proof and facts that make it easy. No, not all dispositions are public, Amanda, but some are. Okay, so court, like a divorce decree is public, and all the regulations that are in that. Okay, not the paperwork, but when something goes into revision and needs to be modified, then of course a copy of all the previously filed paperwork will determine the outcome of that. So sometimes, if you know that you're going to maybe lose one battle to win the whole war, you plan paperwork at a stage where the other can't even see why you're doing this. You're not doing this for this case, you're doing this for the next case. Sometimes you also want to open up 2 or 3 cases, and you entangle them. There's many different ways. Guys, I'm not a lawyer. I just learned my part. But this is something that a good lawyer can see. The more proactive you are with your lawyer, the more your lawyer is going to put in, because for them, this is also something that they do every day. And trust me, they are not very open to respond empathetically to your stories. They have to professionally cut that off from themselves. So the more paperwork you can deliver them, the more motivated they are, because they have something in their hands that can make them look good. Okay? So you really, really got to make sure that you got that down. So what is the overall strategy besides obviously, proving the things, that you want to, that you want to accomplish here? By the way, you can also journal things, as you go. Journals, your diary, your journal can also be submitted. So especially when there's kids involved and stuff, just record everything, record all the emails, social media, screen copy social media stuff, screen copy emails. Personally, I would recommend you guys to actually use an online parenting communication. There's decentralized software. You know, you can Google it. Parents Speak, for instance, parentspeak.com is one of them, where it can't be altered. You know, where whatever was communicated between the parents is sort of forever on the record. Okay, that keeps it more neutral. And you know, don't make mistakes and communicate with your ex through social media or texting and all this like blah blah. If you communicate with them in word, always have your phone on, or get you know, to record, or get yourselves like a mini recorder. They look like little transponders that you can put on your keychain, and so they won't even notice that you recorded. When you don't need their consent, you can just record any interaction, and don't feel stupid about this. Get yourself a 4 terabyte hard drive, you know, for $50, and just collect data. Just become an avid data collector, guys. Record everything, okay? So, and don't, you know, think that, you know, this is traumatizing you. It will empower you when you do this, because you will see that this can literally shift everything around, and it prepares your lawyer. Okay, you also may want to prepare your lawyer for dealing with a person, you know, that has a narcissistic or a borderline personality disorder. But you know, quite frankly, most lawyers are not really psychologists. So unless they're specialized on them, there actually are a few that are specialized on them. And this is something that you could also try to find out. You know, maybe you know someone who's won against a narcissist in court, and ask them if they have a recommendation. But there are some things, you know, besides, you know, your strategy, your overall strategy, and how to put that into action, that you will need to do. So what is actually the strategy? And here we come back to what are the facts. That's, you know, the record recording, and what is your goal, obviously, is now where does this all lead to? So there are some things here that we know out of that predictability that the narcissistic MO provides, that are like the narcissist's kryptonite, okay? And those are humiliation in public, making them act out, making them show their true colors, show, you know, make it, expose their malignancy, expose their lies, expose their threatening and stupid behavior. Okay, here is a recommendation. Dr. Claire Murphy, www.speakoutloud.com, as a resource. Also offers online counseling. So if you know, legal counseling. So if you, oh yes, so please check this out, guys. If you have any other recommendations for resources, lawyers, or anything like that, then please share this here with the others that, you know, are listening or watching this workshop later, maybe in 5 years from now. You know, you never know. But you know, your main goal is to expose the narcissist. That is your main goal. Okay, and there are a few things that you can never, ever, ever do, and that is very important for you to understand. You can never diagnose or even say the word narcissist or borderline or whatever in court ever. You really got to bite your tongue here, because this is something that the courts are very sensitive about. If you use these words, then they'll automatically, their shutters go down, because they hear this all the time. Okay, so you can't really say that, but you can act like it. You can act like you are dealing with one by knowing their MO and exposing their MO. Okay, but let the court make that conclusion. Okay, make the court see that. All right, make, you know, expose your partner in court, so that the judge can, you know, is convinced, that you don't even have to say it. That is the the goal, and that is how you outsmart the narc. And that can make the judge become your ally. That can make you know, even the other lawyer become your ally. But you know, there are, you know, some things that, you know, you like Amanda mentioned, when it comes to allies. Oops, here, that's where we're, when it comes to allies, you know, that you can ask for. So yes, in Amanda's case, there was domestic violence, so that is very, very easy. But even if there is no domestic violence on file or police records, you can ask the court, you can make a petition to court to either have a friend with you, you know, a friend, some kind of supporter that you can bring with you, that can sit next to you, and that can perhaps actually sit between you and the narc, you know, that can function a little bit as a buffer, as a, you know, just a visual wall there between you. I'll explain why this is important, but also for moral and, you know, sometimes actually physical support. Okay, calling into court like Amanda is able to do this um, is typically, I apologize for the train in the background, is typically only possible in mediation. So in actual court dates, you know, this, if there is like, say you are military on active duty and you're in a foreign country, obviously you cannot appear in court, and then you can do that. But there's only very few reasons actually that you cannot appear. You have to go, but you can request to have someone sit next to you and never leave your side. There will be times perhaps where you know, the court retreats, where you're sitting there in court, and I want you to understand, guys, the narc will always, always, always try to intimidate you, try to degrade you, try to influence you energetically, as well as, you know, through verbal abuse, demeanor, and so forth. So you've got to really understand that this will happen and that you need to protect yourself from it. So asking for support is something that you know, can help you to just basically get into a better place. Okay, then the how you need to act in court has a lot to do with what you need to expect in court. Okay, you need to expect that he will go to lengths, you know, imaginary and false facts, false truths, allegations, threats, and so forth, that you can't even, you know, in your wildest dreams come up with. You have to really expect that. Okay, and this is where the gray rock comes in. You really got to remember that this is, you know, what is going to come. All right, so for you to outsmart that, the only way is to be proactive there and train yourself, you know, coach yourself to, you know, to ignore all that. All right, he will provoke you, he will or she will humiliate or try to. Okay, they will try to do anything to set you off balance, to show that you are emotionally unstable, that you're lying, you know, and so forth. So your strategy is then to expose him, okay? Not to fight his wrong allegations, not to get pulled into his sidelines, into all these useless, senseless fights, okay? The court doesn't like that, because it's not about that in the court case. You're gonna have to stay on your own track. But for that, you got to remember here a few things that you can never do. One of which I already mentioned: never use the word narcissist or make any kind of diagnosis. That's not your job. If you want a psychological evaluation, say for custody, then you can make a petition for a psychological evaluation, and then the professional will make the diagnosis. Okay. Do not get defensive, ever. You don't need to get offensive. All right. Do not defensive. Do not show emotions. And do not, and this is why, besides the moral support, why you want to bring somebody with you, do not ever look at him. Remember, you want to remove the narcissistic supply. So you treat him as if he's not there. You completely ignore him. You don't even speak to him. You just address the judge. You just address the judge. Never, never, Amanda confirmed this for us, defend your truth. Never. Well, what do you want to do instead? You want to have your binder ready. You want to have your proof ready. You want to, and this is now how you outsmart, how you expose a narcissist. You want maximum emotional reaction in him. All right. So sometimes, this will already be accomplished by you bringing in all these facts. Something, especially if this is surprising for them, because they still believe that you are sort of subhuman and that you're completely, that you're a space cadet. So if you do this as an act of surprise, then you can already get quite a good response out of him or her. But if this isn't enough, all right, to expose the lies or the false allegations, then coach yourself to actually go into cross-examination. Okay, you can do indirect indirect involvement of him by talking to the judge and say, okay, so I agree with you, Your Honor. It's in the best interest of the kids. I want, or it's in the best interest of the company or whatever. You get them to nod. Okay, you get them to, you show that you understand, the larger picture here, and then you say, but with this and this and this, I don't see that this is possible. Okay, so you go with the flow and then you turn it around and use it against him. Okay, you can also use tactics like provoke and then pull out, where you just do little jabs. Okay, and then you pull out, you go into gray rock right away, and you could even sort of fake apologize and say, oh, this didn't come out right, I didn't mean to say it this way. But you do these little jabs and then pull back. All right. The main part here is, for you to disrupt his sort of glamour. Okay, his glamour will consist of him sort of being the best dad or being the best, the person that respects women the most, or that is the most accepting of different races or whatever. I mean, this will be their MO, and you got to disrupt that, okay, by saying, yeah, wouldn't you agree that this is, sort of the best, way to do certain things? Then why don't you do that? Why did you? And then you come with your facts, say blah blah blah, then and then, or did blah blah blah, then and then. Okay, this is a bit more direct and maybe not feasible for all of you, but don't be afraid of doing that, because if you have proof, okay, if you can prove whatever it is that you're saying to him and you present that right away. So first you say, yeah, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? And then you say, but why did you do this then and then and then? And then you show the proof. Okay, you get him into his corner, or her. All right. I don't know if you guys can follow me here on this, and how you can, sort of connect with this, but those are the cornerstones of winning and, or outsmarting, and reclaiming, those things, those parts, be it your soul, be it your sense of self, be it your children, be it your money, be it your status, or whatever it is that was taken away by the narcissist, to claim that back. And there's softer ways and there's more aggressive ways, but either way, you're going to have to be gray rock, and you're going to have to be an accountant, and you're going to have a strategy, guys. Without that, you're going to lose, because that's their expertise. In court is a way for a narcissist to shine. And even though it's completely fake, They believe in that fake. And when that is recorded in court with an audience, they feel they get the biggest narcissistic supply out of something like that. And so you got to know that this is what you're up against. For you to heal and to move past this, you're going to have to be willing to go into proactiveness. And it is possible, even without a lawyer. Everybody can do it. But you have to be willing to prepare for this, sometimes even, years. I hope this helped, guys, to empower you. Anybody who's listening to this, anybody who just wanted to learn about, this trauma and the narcissistic MO. I mean, even if you have never been in a court case or never will be in a court case with a narcissist, but if you have been exposed to narcissistic behaviors, then you could learn a lot here in how I present this. These are strategies to help you outsmart a narcissist also, in life. Okay, so you've got to identify the narcissist, you've got to know the MO, and then you have to have a strategy. And without that, you're going to get, re-traumatized and experience continual abuse until you finally learn to stand up. So obviously, if this is not in court, but in your personal relationship, you don't want to record everything. But I said this on other occasion. Literally, one of the things that should make you think is when that thought crosses your mind, where you think, I should record our conversation, that is a good indication that you are with a narcissist, if you're not 100% sure. Please ask questions. Please email me if you, have questions, if, in regards to your own case, or, perhaps things that, can be done, or coaching you for court cases. Obviously, I'm not a legal counsel, so I cannot give you legal counseling, but I can coach you energetically to get into this place of empowerment that I presented to you here today. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Amanda, for being able to follow your case here throughout these 10 hours of discussing
This
the
has been
symptoms.
very healing for me to even be able to have this forum to share and tell the truth and not feel alone or crazy. I think just having this right now in conjunction with going through it right now, it's changed how I feel about it and how I handle it and how I do feel more empowered and just being able to talk about it. So I appreciate everybody who's listening.
Well, Amanda, since this is a recording that is obviously going to be archived here for the Sacred Self Healing members, and people will listen to this maybe in 5 years or whatever, would you like to describe, just to conclude all this here, what it is that has changed for you through being able to speak up, through being able to hear other people as well, to educate yourself, to go, what is it, if you can put this into a few words, that has changed? How is the Amanda today different from the Amanda 3 years ago?
I no longer, see myself as a victim who's going to be a victim forever. I feel connected. I feel safe to say the truth. And I feel supported. And I feel like I have the knowledge I need to thrive.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This has been, yes, people are sending their love to you here as well. We love and support to Amanda. They all appreciate you sharing. So not everybody is in that place yet that they can share. So have you here.
And that was awesome. Thanks, Jona. That was awesome.
Thank you. And to have you here, to be so willing to share, I mean, it's really wonderful because it's as a energy coach, I know how hard it is to get to that place, that you actually just can share.
And it took me a while. So, my journey's years in the making. So I do understand how long it takes.
But it does work.
It
If you
does
step
work.
on it, you come out. So thanks for.
And all the best of luck to you in that journey.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, guys. If you want, there are a few subjects that people have sent to me, and I'm not sure if I should continue, but there are more subjects that people want me to cover, like a narcissistic boss, how to, to withstand the hoovering and all that. I mean, please let me know if you want me to continue. There are many more subjects here in regards to this empath narcissist trauma that can be covered. I just don't want to overextend your patience and feel too redundant, but let me know, okay, if you want other subjects to be covered here that are still, unclear for you, or maybe a summary or something like that. It'd be my honor to be of help there, and I'm sure there's more to come in the future. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for contributing by showing up and by listening and by commenting.